What they found is that the people who moved the needle the most in their projects, in their businesses, and with their teams actually were not doing more. They were doing much less, but they were going way deeper into those few things. You guys, that's huge. Think about your business right now. How many things are you trying to hold in your mind that are priorities? How many things are you trying to accomplish right now in your business? If you're holding more than 3 high level, this is the most important priorities, the research says you're not going to do any of them. The research says that you'll get all of them to something like 25 to 50% complete and move on to the next large set of tasks that you have, only to try to revisit them at some point in the future and never get anything off the ground or completely done. This research is staggering to me. And so high performance already at this point, we can now say is not about doing more. It's not about doing a lot. It is about doing hard things, but it's about doing a few hard things and going super deep into them. And so what hard thing are you avoiding or could give focus to that would move the needle in your business? It might not be something underneath the business. Here's where we typically get in trouble. Our strengths, our gaps, and our weaknesses. I'm going to go over this briefly, and I want to give you something to think about here. Typically, we say that where we get into the most trouble as entrepreneurs is we over leverage our strengths. It's not our weaknesses. It's not the gaps that we typically have in our leadership development, in our systems, processes, things like that. It's our strengths that we're over leveraging. And the example that I love to give of myself is that I have what's called the CEO profile. And that's funny because I am a CEO. But when they studied my AVA graph, that was the actual name of the pattern shape that I have. I'm super fast paced. I don't need a lot of collaboration. Details be darned. I don't need them. I don't even want them. And I don't need any certainty in order to make a decision. Well, that makes a great CEO. But what else it does? Really irritates the heck out of my team if I'm not careful. And so one of my greatest strengths is speed and decision making, but it can cause absolute chaos if I'm not careful with that. And so that's an example of my greatest strengths causing some of the greatest gaps in our team if I'm not super careful. And your wife. Well, what is a gap though? So that's a strength. What is a gap? A gap we would define as something you are aware of and actively pursuing solutions for. So I have a gap between using my strength well and using my strength as a wrecking ball, actively pursuing making that better so that I'm better in business. Well, let's keep me in my strength zone of being fast and not needing a lot of detail and being able to make decisions. And now I'm going to surround myself with people that slow me down and push back a little bit here and there and cause me to actually fill in the gaps that I leave. Well, those two things are awesome. And then weaknesses, those are going to be defined as those things that you actually are not even interested in improving. You might say that you are. You're probably not actively improving them, or you might be avoiding them. You might be pretending they don't exist at all. And so if we are thinking of high performance in life and in business, one of the things we can say is, well, where do we put our focus? If we can't focus on everything and we have strengths, gaps, and weaknesses, where do we actually put our focus? What do you guys think? Which one of these three should get the most focus?
Weaknesses.
One vote for weaknesses.
I think you should focus on your strengths.
Okay, got it. Weaknesses in the chat, all the above from Monty. You will have the most success in your life if you are able to clearly identify your strengths and then leverage your strengths. That is where you will have the most impact as a human. That's not to say that we're not actively pursuing improvement in some of these other areas, but we're not going to overemphasize them. We're not going to spend all of our time pouring into our weaknesses. The research says that those people who do pour all of their time, effort, and energy into filling their weaknesses or trying to improve the things that they're naturally never going to be excellent with, they at best raise those weaknesses to average. And does average become a competitive advantage in your business? No. But your strength, wielded and used well, can become a competitive advantage in your business. So gaps is that messy thing in between where you decide, what am I going to fill? What am I going to improve? How am I going to stay in my strength zone as a high performer and actually move the needle forward in my business? By again, doing hard things, but not doing all things hard. We want to make sure that we're identifying a few things that we can go deep into and then leverage our strengths to do that. Lots and lots of conversation around this piece because we then need to identify our strengths and go into those. That's a different call though. And so here's what this typically looks like. The best inspector, the owner who believes that they're a high performer, is what this typically looks like. They're the best inspector, the fastest inspector, the best report writer, the best problem solver, the best customer service representative. Every one of these is a genuine strength. Every one of them can become the ceiling on the business if the owner never lets go of it. You guys are in the builder group. which means that you have an interest in building a team and maybe someday, if not already, being out of the field and making sure that you are building a strong foundation so that you have a company that can provide for you for a long time. If you're in this group, you're not necessarily interested in being the technician in your business forever, which means that some of these things that are very commonly said in the inspection industry, we have to start shifting away from them. If I want to build a real business and have a real team, I don't need to be the best inspector. I need to have great systems. I need to leverage our strengths in our business to create a machine, if you will, that can bring talented inspectors in and then get them producing and then keep them producing. I don't need to be the fastest inspector, but I need to be able to train people and standardize our approach to inspections, the best report writer, et cetera, et cetera. Like insert whatever you want. You don't need to be the best at anything, but what you do need to do is be an expert at what you can leverage well as a competitive advantage. And that's you, your strengths. All right, so let's dive into some of these, and we're going to spend some time on probably the first 5, and then we're going to open up the floor here in a little bit for some conversation. You guys, these things will completely shift the way you're showing up in business, and they are actually right out of this book I was showing you before, High Performance Habits. I love this book and its approach to showing up as a high performer in your life. And I got to tell you a secret too. I actually hate the word performance. I hate it. I loathe it. Because when I think of performance, I don't want to be a performer. And I've had to do a lot of coaching around that myself. I've avoided performing at a high level in certain areas of my life because I've noticed that people only want me around when I'm highly performing. And then that causes this weird cycle of, well, I resent that. And so I've had to reframe or shift the way I think about performance and what that actually means in my life. And so this has been very helpful reading this specific book. All right. So have you guys heard I'm certain that everybody has, but basically it goes like this: in the coaching world, in the personal development world, especially in the entrepreneur world, you should only focus on the things you want to focus on or that you love to do. Delegate the rest. You guys heard of that? Does that sound awesome? Doesn't that sound fantastic? Well, I think we all want that. We all want to actually go into a life in a business where we're only focused on the things that we want to focus on, the things that fill us up, give us energy, and everything else we're either deleting, delegating, or otherwise brushing aside. That's what we want. That's what I want for you. But I have to tell you a hard truth. You cannot have that. And the only way that you're going to get it is by earning it after you've built yourself up to it. Right now, for most of you on this call, probably all of you, I would imagine, in this business stage, but for most of you, just to be generous, I'll say you don't have it yet. We don't have the luxury of saying, I'm only going to focus on the things I love to do and that fill me up. And that's actually counter to what creates a high performer as well. What we have found in the research, this book lays out really well, is that the people who are able to build the business they want the fastest and with the least headache and trial and error are the people who develop the skills they need to accomplish the mission. Not the people who only focus on the things that they want to focus on or the parts of the business that they want to focus on. It's the people who say, here's who I need to be to accomplish the mission. Here's the skill I need to develop. I don't need to like it. It doesn't need to fill me up with energy. I have other ways of filling myself up with energy, and we'll talk about that. But if you're going to build a business, you're going to build a team, you're going to get out of the field, you're going to stay out of the field, you have to develop the skills that will walk you toward your vision, that will help you accomplish the mission. And for some of you, you might be avoiding that. There might be parts of your business that are being neglected right now that if you gave some attention to some skill development in your growth lane or your SOPs or how you train people or how you think about your positioning in your market, if you would do some learning and some skill development, then it could massively shift the way that you're showing up in your market. Because high performers turn themselves into the person they need to be in order to accomplish the mission. They don't sit back and go, that drains me. I'm not doing that. Does anybody here think that daily about something? That drains me. I'm not doing that. I think that about emails. Sorry if you've ever emailed me and I took forever to get back to you. Sorry, not sorry. So if this is true, then one thing we could shift in our life right now, going back to what hard thing, if it got focused, would move the needle. One thing we could think about right now is what skills do I need in order to accomplish the mission I have in my business? Again, this is the builder group. You guys are installing in your business service, operations, growth, financials, and high-performing teams, the 5 pillars in IEB. And so if you have a gap in there, then you can ask yourself, what skill do I need to develop in order to fill that gap? And then you get to work. So the number one habit that high performers have is they develop the skills the mission requires. The second one is that they seek clarity. Do me a favor, drop in the chat right now, 1 through 10, how clear are you with your future, what you're building with your company. 10 is I know exactly what I'm building. Nothing will shift that or change that. 0 is like, I have no idea how I even got on this call this morning. All right. Got a 9, 8 to 9, 60 for Shannon. Was that a typo? Is it supposed to be a 6 or a 0? Oh man, I was hoping you were actually 60. It is a 6. Okay. All right, cool. Now, if you were a 10, just think about this in your mind. If you were a 10 on clarity, would your actions change? The knee-jerk response is, of course. If I was absolutely clear about what I was building, my actions would change. The data is clearly not in favor of that. People who are extremely clear about what they're building are still not super clear about what to do today. Does anybody feel like that? I know where I'm going. I just don't know how to connect my next 10 minutes to it. Like, what do I do in the 90-minute block I have open today that I said I was going to use to work on my business? I know what I want. I want 10 inspectors and I want to make this much money and I want this lifestyle and I want these people around me. Well, dang, I have an afternoon open. What do I do? Very common, you guys. And so this is a skill I want to teach you around this second habit, and it is seek clarity. The skill is not to be so clear about the future that it creates its own roadmap. That is a skill we can build toward, but instead, what I want you to think about is the skill of becoming clear enough to take the next right action. High performers, it turns out, are no more clear about the future than anybody else. They might be able to articulate what they want a little better, but they're no more clear about how to get there than any of us. They develop a habit, though, of seeking clarity all the time. They're always getting clear enough to take the next right action. They're not guessing what the next right action is. They're thinking about it. They're molding it. They're shaping it. They're doing things like jumping on a mastermind group and listening to how to do stuff like that, going through our through line, understanding what it looks like to cut trial and error out of all the things that we're here to do. Seeking clarity is a different skill than being clear. I've seen this through thousands of clients in coaching at this point. The people who go the furthest, the fastest with more, what's the phrase? High speed, low drag. Those people typically have the skill of getting clear. It doesn't mean they stay clear. And so I'm saying this specifically so that if you don't feel clear right now about what you should be doing in order to build that big fancy vision you have for your life, that's okay. But it cannot cause you to freeze and not do anything. It cannot cause you to freeze and just get busy and distracted on today focused stuff. We have to pause and seek clarity. Same page? Makes sense, you guys? Is somebody talking to me or is that just an accidental? Okay. Next thing. So this one is energy I was talking about. So energy for a person who would consider themselves to be a high performer in their life and in their business is a pretty particular thing. And again, it's not just doing those things that fill you up. It's generating energy by doing something right now that creates energy later. Write that down if you've never heard that phrase before. Do something right now that creates energy later. What we typically think about is, how can I get energized right now? Oh, I don't have any energy, so I'm not going to do whatever the thing is that I do. I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like doing my quiet time, or I don't feel like working on the business. I don't feel like having those conversations. I didn't feel like working out this morning. I didn't feel like getting my exercise in yesterday morning. In fact, for some reason, I'm just not into it right now. I don't want to work out. I go through periods like that. It's just, I love to exercise, but sometimes I just don't want to. But what I know to be true is that if I get some exercise in, regardless of how I feel, I have more energy later in the day. I'm better able to articulate things when I'm teaching. I'm better able to stay curious when I'm coaching. I show up better for my family. And so whether I feel like it or not, you do things that create energy later is a way different frame of mind than I'm doing something because I'm energetic right now. Is that making sense to you guys? The same is true with your strategic thinking in your business. You may not feel like doing it, but if you want to stay energized and excited about your business, you need a clear roadmap to follow. So whether you feel like it or not, you got to spend some time thinking about the future. You got to spend some time seeking clarity. You've got to spend some time getting super simple with what you're doing. You've got to do that 2x2 time we teach in IEB, because one of the highest indicators of future success is how excited you are or how energized you are around the thing you're building. This is the pattern I see all the time for you guys, for the entrepreneurs that we serve in IEB. I'm super pumped up. Maybe I just came back from an event or a call that really inspired me. I'm really excited. I have all this momentum around these ideas. And then all of a sudden, my actual physical energy starts to go down because, hey, we're entrepreneurs. We're all building businesses and we're busy. And then at the end of the day, when that energy dips, so does our clarity, so does our drive. And then we just sit back and wait for that energy to come back. And what does that look like for most people? What it looks like is, well, we'll go to the next event and we'll get another shot in the arm. And we'll sit back and wait for my environment to create energy for me. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're waiting for energy right now. Like, man, it'll find me at some point. I'll get excited again. But the truth is that a high performer is somebody who generates energy. They're not waiting for things to inspire them, and they build systems in their life that help them generate energy. For me personally, that's mind, body, soul. Mind, body, soul. Super simple. You guys have probably heard that phrase before. So every morning, whether I feel like it or not, and I'm not perfect, I miss it sometimes, but whether I feel like it or not, it's going to be spending time in the Word, it's going to be exercise, and it's going to be learning something in the coaching or CEO development lane that fills me up and gets me excited to go into the day. Generate energy, you guys. Raise necessity. Let's see. I think I'll go through these next two and then we'll pause for a moment. Oops, going the wrong way. Raise necessity. There it is. Number 4, raise necessity. I think this is a really great concept, and it's something that I hadn't thought about before in the way that the book teaches it. Again, this book, awesome book. High performers are not people who just are always motivated. They just have like this superhuman ability to get things done because they want to. That's not necessarily it. What they do is they create urgency around the things that they're working on. Creating urgency is something that has to happen because we're all entrepreneurs. Aside from our need to make money and pay the bills, there's probably not a lot of urgency over building your future. There are things that are easy to put off into the future. Got to develop those SOPs. Okay, well, I'm not necessarily hurting because of that right now. I'll push it to next week and next week and next week and next week. I got to get that budget in order with the chart of accounts and a clean P&L so that I can make good business decisions. Okay, well, I'm operating without it, so I'll just push it to next week, next week, next week. Well, what high performers do is they create their own urgency through 2 methods. One is they develop deadlines. They give themselves deadlines and they time bound all their serious projects. And they may project manage it as well. Here are the steps. I'll have these steps done in this time frame, and that's how I'm going to conduct myself in business. And they're able to stick to it because they're going deep into a few things, not doing everything they could do. It's impossible to project manage important things if you're doing way too many things. You just won't have the time to focus on it. Instead, what they do is this project management thing where they list out all the steps to the thing they're working on and they put a deadline on it and they organize their calendar to be able to protect the time and work on it. All concepts we talk about frequently in IEB. The other thing they do, though, is they bring other people around them to help them have some accountability. And so increasing urgency, there's a lot that we could say about it, but I'm just going to leave you with 2 things. One is if you have a big project you're working on in your business, which I hope that you all do, you are in IEB after all, you should have one thing that you're highly focused on right now that's going to move the needle in your business. If that's true, it needs to have a deadline on it. It cannot be open-ended. I'm going to work on this thing, and here's what it's going to look like in 2 weeks, 30 days, 6 months, however big your project is. Critical, you guys. It cannot be open-ended. And this is, it turns out, is driver for people to have success in their momentum building. They time bind everything. And this is the one I'll pause on, simplicity. Who here feels like just things are too complicated? Like they just feel messy sometimes. Anybody ever feel like that? It just feels complicated. Here's the crazy thing that we do to ourselves. We love to make things complex. Some of you might be hearing the very simple things I'm saying right now and making them complex in your mind. These things are very simple. And if you were to execute well with some of these things, you would completely revolutionary style change your life if you were to lean into these very simple high performance habits. But we love to make things complex. For example, here's something I did to myself. I read the book Miracle Morning. Anybody here read that book, Miracle Morning? Oh, it's a great book. Are you guys lying? Not paying attention? Or have you guys literally not read that book? Okay. Well, if that's the case, maybe you guys should check that book out. Miracle Morning is a really good book for anybody that wants to get better at their morning routines. But here's what I ended up doing. It has, I think it's 7 different things for you to do in a morning routine. And I was like, awesome, I'm just going to take this framework and go do all of them. And every single morning, I beat myself up for not doing all of them. How that went for me. I was like, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to do it consistently well. And then every time I didn't, I was a failure. And the truth is, I didn't need to do all of those things. There were 7, I believe. And not all of them even really filled my energy up or gave me what I wanted from a morning routine. And it was an example of me saying, well, that guy's doing it this way, so I'll do it exactly that way. And it became this complex thing that I didn't even want to do. And then I felt bad not doing it. We do the same thing in our business. That company over there has a great growth system. Look at all the KPIs they're measuring. Look at all of the things that have moved the needle in their business because of all the things they're focused on. I should probably have all of those things to focus on right now. I should track all of those metrics that they just talked about. And then we build this complex thing in our mind that we can then not tackle in a reasonable amount of time because it's got too many steps, it's got too many gaps, and maybe we need to do a little bit of business building before we can actually turn something into a needle moving process. Okay, so simplicity is not necessarily something that happens and then you never have to work on it again. Rob and Kat Lemoyne, they have the company RIA, one of the biggest inspection companies in the universe, as Rob says, which is true. One of the things they are religious about is simplicity. And I'll never forget the lesson I got from them just listening to them talk about it one day. Because they have, I think at the time they were approaching 50 inspectors. I don't even know where they are now. They're enormous. Remember, they were talking about this, about how complex we make things and how they're going through their entire business just looking for ways to simplify everything. And you guys, if it's true for a company that size, it must be true for us as well. Because how did they make things complex? They started as a small company. They built and built and built and built and iterated and reiterated. And eventually they had all these big complex SOPs and procedures and training programs. And then they caused all these bottlenecks and now they have to tear it down to make it more simple. Well, why don't we just start with simplicity? I'm going a little too deep into this. My main point is that simplicity is a rhythm. Think about that. Burn it in your brain. I want to live simplicity as a rhythm in my life. Every once in a while, I need to wipe the plate clean. I need to get everything off of my plate, take a look at what's actually going on, and make sure that I am not purposefully or accidentally making things complex and slowing my business down and causing bottlenecks. For me, I have a rhythm of about every 6 weeks, looking at my calendar and then getting all the things off of it that I accidentally said yes to, because I love to give my time away and talk to people. And so sometimes I get myself into this loop of, dang it, I gave all my time away. Now I can't work on the business. And so I've noticed this as a rhythm for me. About every 6 weeks, I got to wipe the slate clean and make sure I'm going back to simplicity. One final note on simplicity is we make things complex because we are wired to love solving problems. You guys feel good solving problems. And problems are typically complex. And so what do? We create complex things to turn them into problems that we can solve. For some of you, you're waiting to pull the trigger on something in your growth lane because you're still tweaking it, still trying to decide how to measure it, still trying to decide what it's going to look like to be awesome at it. It's this complex thing that you're building. The answer is going to be, well, stop doing that. Break it back down to simple and go take action. For some of you, you're not carving out enough time to actually work on your future in your business. And you think, well, I need to carve out like days, weeks, months. I need to stop doing everything so I can work on my business and get more clear about the future. Well, that's very complex. What you really need is a 90-minute flow state, 80 minutes of time to just think and then write down your thoughts. Don't make it complex, make it simple. Some of you are putting off hiring your next inspector. Actually, I'm curious, who here is in hiring mode right now? They need to hire an inspector. For some people, we put that off because we've made the recruiting and selecting process too complex, or we have not gotten on top of the training system, or we know that what we're about to bite off is now I've hired somebody, I'm about to get more busy and it's too complex, which is causing the busyness. Simplify it. All right, let me rush through a couple of these because I want to make one final point for you guys to give you something you can sink your teeth into. And then I just want to open the floor up for a little bit of conversation this morning. So there are other habits: increasing productivity, develop influence, demonstrating courage. But really what all this is meant to help you with is getting through something we call the execution gap. What I deeply desire for all of you is to get very clear about what your right next step is, your right next action is in your business that moves you the direction of your vision. And so for that to be the case, you've got to be somewhat clear about your 3 to 5 year vision. Like, what does your life need to look like in 3 to 5 years? If you can't give a very short, concise answer with that, you need to do the work around that. What do you want in 3 to 5 years for your life? And if you can't answer that, you're never going to be able to determine what type of business you need, because the answer to your business vision is, what does my business need to do in order to build the life I want? You see how I'm scaffolding that? Life vision tells you what type of business to build. The execution gap oftentimes lies in that messy middle. Like, I'm building a business, I don't quite understand why, and so I'm just doing all the things I could do instead of the things I should do to build a life. All right, so who here is currently using the one sheet? Okay, awesome. Joe, Brandon, Grant? Not a lot of people. Again, either you're tired and just not raising your hand, or maybe it actually is not a lot of people. I would propose that it's not a lot of people, though, for two reasons. One, it's a training in your through line called the One Sheet. If you've never watched that training, write that down as an action item. Go watch it. I'm not going to go super deep into it right now, but what I will tell you is the One Sheet is meant to be a starting point, not an end point. And so basically, it's a place for you to go fill out your goals in different areas of your life, including your financials, your business, and other areas, so that you can do something really important, which is give you a way to regularly review your goals. So I'm not going to ask you to tell on yourselves right now, but have you reviewed your high level goals in your business in the last week? I saw a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Thank you. You don't have to say yes or no to this. If you have not reviewed your high level goals in your business in the last week, 7 days, then what the research says is you're not focused on them. Let that sink in, you guys. We call this weekly goal review. It's part of your personal operating system. And so we have trainings on your entire personal operating system in your through line. I've been dropping high performance courses all year for you guys in the high performance course section of your through line. I'd encourage you to go watch the personal operating system training. But here's the flyover version of it. If you have a 3 to 5 year vision, what you do is you break it down into your annual strategic goals, right? And we're typically pretty familiar with that. Here's how much money I want to make. Here's how many agents I need to have in my pocket. Here are the things I need to do to make that happen. What we're not so great at is the rest of it. Quarterly priorities, monthly review, weekly focus, which is what I'm talking about right now, and then your daily rhythms, your daily execution. And so your weekly goal review is where your One Sheet comes in handy. On a weekly basis, what we want to see you guys doing is not reading the whole book and the whole strategy and all the goals, but keeping them in front of you, skimming them, making them visible. Because most of us in our ADHD entrepreneur world, most of us are always going to fight against our goals being out of sight and out of mind. And so if we're not regularly reminding ourselves of what we said was important, then we are going to regularly not focus on those things. Research says that if you get into a weekly rhythm of getting your goal sheet out and saying, okay, I'm just orienting myself this direction. If you do that, then the rest of your days will begin to be incredibly focused on those things, and not even in a active, you're thinking about it all the time way, but in a subconscious way, which is what we want. Your mind will start to look for opportunities to solve those things, to create those things, to put those things in place that are on your goal sheet or your One Sheet, or however you like to record your goals. Is this making sense to you guys? Who here is doing a weekly goal review? Carl is. Awesome. I see a few hands. Good. Joe, gotcha. If you take nothing else out of this call, double down on weekly goal review. Here's what it looks like functionally. For me, it's on Sunday evenings. And if I don't get it in on Sunday, which happens sometimes, I'll do it early Monday morning, but it has to be before the week starts because I'm pointing myself a direction so that I'm optimizing the week. It doesn't take long. It's not an hour. It's not hours. For me, it's 15 minutes because it's repetitive. I'm putting in the reps with it. It's not meant for you to sit and waste a bunch of brain power on. If you have your vision and your annual goals clearly written out, then you can skim them and remind yourself of them within 15 minutes. Now, there's a couple of pro tips I would give you. One, if you need to better define those things, well, then it'll take longer than 15 minutes, but do that work. Another is you can now use AI to help you with this. And I currently use Claude, and I have my entire personal operating system loaded into it. I'm going to build one for you guys soon too. I'm working on that, but I have it all loaded in there so that when I say new week, it says, cool, let's review last week's priorities, Mark. Let's review this week's priorities and make sure they all tie to your 3 to 5 year vision. Pretty awesome. But that weekly goal review is critical, you guys. And so again, if you take nothing else from this call, as a high performers look at their goals regularly so that they don't have mission creep. Here's our final thought. If you truly believed that less could produce more, what would your life look like? What would you stop doing tomorrow? And what would you finally commit to as a highest level priority to move your business forward? Or maybe to shift something in your life that's taking energy away from how you're showing up in business. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Okay. Well, guys, this was fun. I have my next one coming up in just over 30 minutes. I'm going to go get ready for that one with the enterprise group. Appreciate all of you. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday.